Mr. Sharp, would you introduce yourself? Would you tell us your name and DOC number, please?
Yeah, Larry Sharp, 443025.
And you have counsel with you this morning. Mr. Block, would you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. My name is Matthew Block, and I will be representing Mr. Sharp today for this hearing.
Okay, and will you close it out for us at the end?
Yes, ma'am, I sure will.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Sharp, you're here today seeking a commutation of your sentence. You're classified as a third felony offender. You were sentenced in May 2001 in Caddo Parish for a second-degree murder conviction. You received a life sentence. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So first, before we get started, I want to recognize the folks who have joined us today. Here in support, we have Mr. Kerry Myers with the Parole Project, Delisa Sharp, your sister, Holly, Holly, your daughter. I'm not sure, what is Holly's last name? Eford, okay. And Delisa and Holly will be speaking on your behalf, as will the Parole Project. Here at DOC headquarters in support, we have Dexter Shelley, Dr. Marianne Fisher-Giorlando, Sherman Singleton, Harold Turner. On Zoom, we have Peggy Ritter, Ronnie Sharp, and Dion Lee. In opposition, we have the District Attorney's Victim Assistance Coordinator from Caddo Parish, Ms. Leona Fitzgerald, Kristen Parson, the Victims Assistance Coordinator, James Bungarner, and Geraldine Moore, both representing the victim. And at the appropriate time, those who've indicated they'd like to speak, we'll give them the opportunity to do so. But first, we'll begin the interview with you, Mr. Sharp, and your case has been assigned to Mr. Freeman. So would you answer his questions, please?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Sharp, how old are you?
65, sir.
Okay, and how long have you been in jail on this charge?
23 years and 9 months.
Okay. What's your educational level?
I graduated from the NOBTS in Angola.
Okay, tell me a little bit about what happened. What made you go after Miss Sanders and shoot Miss Sanders?
I left my wife had left me after 18 years of marriage, and I became involved with Joni a few months later. We had a tumultuous relationship from the start. We were both using drugs and alcohol on a daily basis. And I found out she was seeing a friend of mine a couple of days before this incident. And after doing drugs and alcohol for a couple of days, I went and took a gun from a guy's house who I knew was not home, a friend of mine, and borrowed a truck from a guy, another friend of mine, where they wouldn't recognize me. And I went looking for her and eventually found her in Vivian, Louisiana, and went around the back of the house and shot her twice.
Did you have a protective order on you for Miss
Yes.
Sanders at that time?
Yes, sir. There's been an incident maybe a month before where Joni hadn't come home one weekend. We were living together at that time, and I'd given her some money to go shopping, and she didn't return. So I went to her job on Monday morning and confronted her there, and a protective order was issued. Joni and I both contacted the Justice of the Peace, Mr. Hugh Taylor, about lifting the restraining order. But at the time, he didn't feel like it was the proper thing to do. But Joni and I were still seeing each other. The Thursday night before this incident, the incident happened on Sunday. On Thursday night, Joni came to my apartment, spent a couple of hours there. And then it was on Friday night when she called me at my apartment, and I saw the number on the caller ID and recognized it as a friend of mine.
Okay, you said y'all both did drugs and alcohol. How long have you been doing drugs?
Since I was 14.
And what were your drug of choice?
Mostly marijuana, but I became involved with cocaine and methamphetamine later on in life. But mostly it was marijuana and alcohol. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict.
Are you still alcoholic?
I'll be an alcoholic forever, sir.
What kind of treatment have you received?
Well, I've taken all the programs at Angola, the substance abuse. I've been attending AA at the barracks. I was actually, and when I went through the Bible college, I had a lot of counseling courses. So when guys got in trouble at Angola, I would go to the cell blocks, counsel them on the danger of, using drugs while they were at Angola. And I saw most of the people in the law library. I've been inmate counsel for 18 years. Just about everybody was on some kind of substance when they committed their crimes. And I've always taken that very seriously. My treatment, I've contacted a place in Tomball, Texas, the Unity Club there, spoken with several people at the club there, and talked about getting a sponsor. I know that I'm going to have help when I get out to stay sober, sir.
Right. Looking at the community attitude, the judge is opposed. The district attorney is strongly opposed. The sheriff is opposed. The chief is opposed. Your family, Lisa Sharp, sister, she's unopposed. And the victim's family is opposed, and they'll be speaking later at the proper time. How many children do you have?
Just one, sir.
Do you have contact with them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Son or daughter?
Daughter, Holly.
I'm not gonna try to list all the classes you've taken, Mr. Sharp, because you've taken a ton.
Yes, sir.
Tell me which class that you took that you feel you got the most out of, one or two.
Bible college was very good, and the family and marriage and the ethics class were very great, but the class that affected me the most was victim awareness. And that was taken in 2010. And because I worked for the Anglite at the time, not only did I get to take the class, but I was able to interview to write a story about the class. It was a 12-week program where they actually brought victims in. And there was one victim, Miss Anna Brown, that impacted me so greatly that she had been the victim of 2 violent crimes. She was raped, and then 4 years later, her son was murdered. And when I got to interview her later, she told me how when she had to tell her son's grandchildren that her dad never would be coming home again. And I thought about Maggie and Bradley, and when Miss Geraldine had to tell them that their mother wouldn't be coming home again. And that just had an effect on me ever since. I learned in victim awareness that the initial response is helplessness, hopelessness, depression. And then they go into a stage where 2 or 3 months later, where they think about arming themselves either for protection or thinking about getting revenge. And then the PTSD sets in. I remember Miss Geraldine called my parents 2 months after the event and said that she was on the end of a pier and she could see Joni underneath the water and she would be reaching for her, but she couldn't save her. And I've had nightmares about that, and I can only imagine, I can't even imagine what the family must still feel to this day because of my actions.
You've had a good institutional record. You've only had 2 write-ups. The last was in 2010. You've got a whole bunch of letters of support from different people. I know you do a lot of community service. You said you were inmate counsel. I was reading your file. Tell me some other community service that you have done while you've been in prison. Something that really sticks out to you.
Well, as soon as I got to Angola, I became involved in positive programs. I became a member of the church there in Angola and founded church at the Pentecostal Apostolic Fellowship. And in 2008, I was elected as the assistant pastor there and the vice president of the philanthropy club. And I was the vice president and assistant pastor for 5 years, and then I was elected president and the senior pastor of that fellowship. I volunteered to do funerals for the Point Lookout Committee. Some of the people that had been doing the funerals had stepped down, and I officiated approximately 75 funerals and attended 200 more as a member of the Angolite. We go to all the funerals to make sure that the guys are buried with dignity, even though they committed a terrible crime, and a lot of them's family members couldn't claim their bodies. When I got to the barracks, I became involved in the ministry here. Because I graduated the Bible college, I was a DLC certified tutor, and I began facilitating some of the classes here, the 100 hours, anger management here, helping the guys with the AA. Even though I didn't facilitate unless somebody wasn't there, I helped the guys with preparing the certificates and stuff for those guys. Anytime on the compound they have an event, I always volunteered for that. So I'll try to do what I can do to be a person that gives back.
Okay. Mr. Sharp, after this offense occurred, you tried to commit suicide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are there any lasting effects? Do you take any mental medication at all?
No, sir. I got off all the medication in 2002, and in 2005, I was released from any mental health considerations there at Angola. And I haven't been on anything but ibuprofen since, sir.
Okay. Captain, what do you have to say about Mr. Sharp?
Good morning, board members. Thank y'all for having us. Mr. Sharp's been here about 5 years. And if I had to sum it up, I'd say in incarceration of servitude, we don't have a legal counsel program here, but Larry has helped hundreds of people with their legal aid. He volunteers whenever we need help. He's been at the mansion for a couple of years, and everyone there speaks extremely highly of him. I've gotten several phone calls about him. I can't say enough about his work ethic and how dedicated he is to the program. And we appreciate the opportunity to sit before y'all this morning.
Mr. Sharp, what is your job at the mansion?
I'm a butler for the First Lady and the Governor.
All right, I have no further questions, Ms. Vermont.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Mr. O'Shea?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Sharp. How are you?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Mr. Sharp, I've read all the information that was given to me, and I want to commend you on serving your time very well. You've been a blessing to many people who needed legal assistance, and you served the state in a noble capacity. But you were 42 years old when you committed this crime. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You were a grown man, you were divorced, and you premeditatedly went to a friend's house. You bought a truck so you wouldn't be recognized, and you hunted for hours and hours upon hours in the state of Texas and Louisiana until you found Joni. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You went from place to place and you had time to realize what you were doing, and you still went forward with the action. You pulled up to your friend's mother's home, asked where Joni was, and you immediately walked in while she was doing laundry and shot her twice without even thinking with a shotgun. And then you attempted to murder your friend and her mother as you got away. Am I right so far?
Yes, sir. I shot his truck as I was leaving, sir.
Now, if this was the only offense on your record, I could say it was a spur of the moment. It was jealousy, but you had an extensive criminal record before this. Your first arrest was in 1976 for DWI, and you were convicted. And that was in Harrison County, Texas. Then in Marshall, Texas in 1977, you were arrested for burglary and pleaded guilty. 1977, indecent exposure. Pleaded guilty. Possession of marijuana, criminal mischief, DWI, possession of marijuana, 1980, aggravated assault, 1984, unlawful delivery of controlled substance, 1985, reckless conduct, discharging a firearm, 1995. It goes on and on, including at least 2 or 3 more DWIs, assault, 1999, until you got the first degree murder in 2000. Is all of that true?
Yes, sir. All of my arrests were, I was an addict, and all of my arrests were alcohol and drug related, sir. I was
Sir.
supporting a habit, and that's no excuse. I chose to do the drugs and alcohol, sir. But that is correct, sir.
So basically, you have an extensive criminal history, over 17 arrests before you were arrested for killing Joni.
Yes, sir.
You've been on supervision numerous times, and you've not done very well while you're on supervision.
Yes,
You
sir.
had a chance to go to drug court, and you didn't do well. You've only been incarcerated for 23 years for premeditatedly killing a human being.
Yes, sir.
My question is 23 years sufficient restitution, no matter what you've done in the 23 years? Is that sufficient restitution for killing a human being premeditatedly? It wasn't an accident. You hunted her down and you shot her with a shotgun.
Sir, no amount of time, no amount of program can ever make up or atone for what I did. Mr. Roche, I am so sorry, and I'd like Joni's family to know I'm so sorry for the pain and suffering I caused that family. Those children were 8 and 11 at the time. I can never, ever understand what I did to traumatize those children. I'm just asking the board to please look at who I am today, sir. And if I could change it, I would. If I could serve from now to ever to bring her back, I would. We know that's not possible,
Well, Mr. Sharp, this is not all about you today. This is about the victims of this crime who are still living. It's about the community that you plan to live in, because we had 3 or 4 letters from the district attorney's office, judges, legal community, and law enforcement in Texas saying that we should not grant this clemency, basically because you have an extensive criminal history and you are not welcome in the state of Texas.
That's understandable, sir.
Now, so tell me why this panel should vote to give you clemency today with a criminal history and a history of violence, assault, and other offenses in your past.
Sir, again, I cannot express deeply enough how sorry I am for the pain and suffering I caused that family. If I could undo it, I would, Mr. Roche. I would. These 23 years and 9 months, I live with the shame of what I did to that family each and every day. I've embraced that. You know, I woke up in that jail cell and looked in the mirror and hated who I saw. That wasn't who I was raised to be. I was an alcoholic and drug addict, and I knew that. But I was not. I was now a murderer, and I had to face that. And I decided that day that I would change who I was and that I would become a better human being and try to affect those positively, whoever I came in contact with. And that's what I did. From that day forward, I started to be a better person. I started a moral and spiritual rehabilitation. And I would just ask the board to look at who I am today. The 23 years and 9 months has made me open my eyes to who I was. And I was not a very nice person, sir. I agree totally with you, sir. But I'm not that person today.
Mr. Sharp, I know you've lived with it for every day for the last 23 years and 9 months, but those 2 children have lived the last 23 years and 9 months without their children, the mother without the daughter, and other loved ones who have been suffering for the last 23 years and 9 months. Madam Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Roche. I was going to mention to you also, Mr. Sharp, about the Texas opposition in Marion County from the sheriff, the judge, an attorney, a friend of the victim's family, and of course the district attorney's office. You need to be aware of it. If you were successful and were eventually released, what would be your transition plan?
Well, I plan on going to the parole project with Mr. Kerry Myers and them. I know they have the ability to help me reintegrate back into society. Kerry's a very good friend of mine, and he's going to help me. I'll be living with my sister in Tomball, Texas. She's graciously opened her home to allow me to move in with her if I was given the opportunity. I have transportation. Somebody's offered to donate me a car, and I would definitely become involved in the church in the area. Mr. Mike Barber Ministries, his son has a church in downtown Houston, BB Barber. And then in Sealy, Texas, Christian City Fellowship has offered to assist me if I'm allowed the opportunity to go back to Texas. And I would definitely seek the AA treatment at the Tomball Unity Club there within 10 minutes of my sister's house to get me a sponsor. And I have the emotional support of my family, financial support, and I just ask the board to please consider that.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions, so we'll hear from the folks who want to speak in favor. First, the parole project, Mr. Myers.
Good morning, Kerry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project. I'm here to tell you that we are in total support of Larry Sharp. We know that our program is geared to help him reintegrate based on the number of years he has been incarcerated. Our program is designed exactly for this type of person who has served a long sentence. He mentioned that he's a good friend of mine, and he is. I hired Larry at the Angelite. And the reason I hired Larry was because of his character. I watched people before I hired them, unknowing that they were being watched to determine what kind of person they were. That was one of my criteria. And Larry stood out. As an inmate counsel, not only was he an excellent inmate counsel, it was the character, the compassion, the way he helped people. It was the service, his service on Point Lookout, his service through the church there. At this point, I have never seen the fact that he's at the barracks in such a trusted position. And honestly, I've never seen anyone more prepared to return, anyone more remorseful, and Larry and I have had many conversations about his actions. Someone who is sincere, a person who knew what drove him. He was for years, he was a functioning addict and alcoholic. And a person who can function like that isn't often in denial of who they are. Larry is no longer in denial of anything. He is a true person of character. Larry is no threat to public safety. Parole Project is prepared to assist Larry in any way necessary, and that includes long-term support if he needs to stay here in Louisiana. The Parole Project is prepared to do that also, to provide him with whatever he needs over the long term. Obviously, his plan is to go to Texas where he has family support, but we are prepared to help and assist Larry in any way. So I would just ask this board, not only as someone who has seen more than 500 clients successfully come through our program, but as a person who knows Larry, knows the true Larry inside and out, to grant his recommendation today. We are here for him.
Thank you. All right, and now could we hear from Delisa Sharp?
Yes. Good morning. Hello, my name is Delisa Sharp. I'm Larry's youngest sibling, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of our family. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and my family and where Larry will be coming to live. Larry will be coming to live with me in Tomball, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. My husband and I were willing to welcome Larry into our home, but he passed away in April of 2020 of cancer. So it's now just me, and I really look forward to having him. I have 2 grown children, and they are also ready to welcome Larry into our home and our lives. I am a principal secretary at a junior high. I've been employed by Tomball Independent School District for 15 years, ever since we moved here. I just live a simple life. I go to work, I come home, I spend time with my family, and that's what Larry will be doing with me. Our family was separated after our parents' divorce, and one brother and myself, we were sent to live with different relatives, but Larry was always that older brother that went out of his way to be sure that I felt special and loved. We had a special bond as he was the oldest, and then I was a baby arriving 10 years later. After the divorce, life was hard, but it was really hard for Larry. As I grew up, I watched the brother that I loved and loved me get lost in addiction. As a young child and in high school and as a young adult, I never did any drugs or any drank or did really anything bad because I saw the road that it had taken Larry down, and I knew the heartache that it had caused my father, and I never wanted to do that. But I wish I had done more than just be a good kid. I wish I'd been a good sister too. I wish I had known more and paid closer attention and actually intervened. Larry committed a horrible crime for which he has been remorseful for every day since. He knows the irreparable hurt and damage that he caused Joni's family, and he would give anything to turn back time and not do what he did. Nothing can change what happened all those years ago, but know that still to this day and to this minute that he is truly, deeply sorry. We all are, the entire family. We are truly sorry. Larry was so sorry that he immediately began to change and has worked very hard through the years to make changes who he is as a person. He didn't just take a class or two, he actually became a minister. He spent years and years working on how to improve himself. You've heard all the things he's accomplished. He bettered himself and he actually became a productive member of the prison population. And I know that he will be a productive member of society if he is released. I can guarantee you that this time I will know that everything is happening in his life. I will be paying attention. He and I have already located AA meetings that are close to my house, and I will be sure that he gets there and anywhere else he needs to be. His sobriety is top priority, and addiction will never rule his life again. We have 2 other brothers that live within a 3-hour range, and we have all supported Larry through the years, and we all love him and will continue to support him. Larry will not be returning to the small town in East Texas. Our father passed away 5 years ago, and his daughters moved to Arkansas. Only my stepmom remains in that small town. My Uncle Ronnie and Aunt Peggy are also here today to support Larry. The whole family is united in our stance of supporting Larry, and we'll do what we need to do. Thank you for allowing me to speak today on my brother's behalf and for considering his application for clemency. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your remarks. And now from Holly Ifford.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I'm very sorry for what has happened. I'm very sorry. And he feels terrible about what has happened, and his family feels terrible for what has happened. And we all wish that we could change it. But we know that that can't happen. Growing up with my dad, he wasn't the greatest dad. He was not a great husband. But as his only child, I always saw glimpses of good. He was kind to people and always tried to help people that were in need. And so even through the bad, I continued to try to see the good in him. And eventually the bad outweighed the good. And there came a point where my mom and I had to leave because it was just too much. The addictions continued to spiral, and his functioning alcoholism turned into just trouble consistently. And so we left. And after we left, he continued to spiral further and further and further out of control. And it was hard to watch, but we knew we couldn't help anymore. And eventually he ended up taking Joni's life. And I'm so sorry that happened. I am thankful that my dad has had the opportunity to become a changed person. I'm thankful for the opportunity that he has received to have all the lessons on how to be a better person, on the counseling, the many classes that he has had the opportunity to take, the Bible college, and the people that have invested time into him and helping him grow. I'm thankful that I've got to see him be a kind and compassionate man to fellow inmates to us to truly care and to show love. He never knew what love really looked like, but I feel like he does now. And I hate that it had to come to this for him to learn. But I'm so thankful that I get to see the man he is today, and that I get to see a changed man. A man that I'm proud to now call my dad. And I pray that you would see that person, how far he has come, and the evil that he has left behind. And we will never forget what he has done. That will never be minimized. But I am thankful that he can have an opportunity to show society that he can be a better person, that he can show his family and friends and people that care for him that he can do right. And I just thank you for your time today. And I hope that you will look at the good that he can do now.
Thank you for sharing with us today. We appreciate it. We're going to move and hear the opposition now. We'll hear from, if we could hear from Ms. Geraldine Moore first, please.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak. 23 years ago, Larry Sharp murdered my daughter. He took my daughter's life. He took my 2 grandchildren's mother away. He burned our home to the ground. He left my grandchildren nothing. He left me nothing except my 2 grandchildren to raise. They had no home. We had nothing. I'm sorry that I have lost my Joni, and I'm sorry that my grandchildren lost their mother. I don't know what else to say except Joni will not get a second chance in life. So I don't know why Larry Sharp should deserve a second chance. He doesn't. Joni did not get a second chance and will never. And her 2 children have grown up not knowing their mother. They only know me as their mother. And that's not fair to them. And thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Moore, for your remarks. And this is Mr. Bumgarner.
Yes, ma'am.
Good, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just want to touch on the fact that the first thing he said was that he went to Vivian, Louisiana, to hunt her down and kill her, or however he said it. But before he did that, he went to Three-Way Grocery, which was only about a mile from our house, and bought $1 and something cents worth of gasoline and went and burned our house down, was not knowing whether we were in it or not. I have lived with this. Excuse me. My whole life. I'm 35 years old now. And if I want to see my mother, I have to go to a graveyard, and I still can't see her. But he can stay incarcerated, and they can still go and visit him. I don't think he deserves a chance to get on parole because it was premeditated, but he knew what he was doing. He was jealous and he was mad, and I have seen him prior to him killing her. He tried to kill her one time before at Marshall Manor. He tried to cut her throat with a box cutter, and luckily she put her hand in front of her throat and he cut her hand wide open. Luckily, she got away from that time, but it wasn't long after that when he actually executed her. I have 2 kids now, and I fear for their lives if he gets out. Because when you go to the penitentiary, my father's he's been to Angola back in '78. My father had been in and out of the penitentiary my whole life. I've never had anybody but my grandmother. He took away my whole life. I just ask y'all please to consider that. And please know that the only thing you have in prison is time. And the only thing that you have time to do is try to better yourself and make yourself look better. And some people do get better. But just know that they can see him whether he gets released or not. But I'll never get to see my mother again. And this has opened a wound from almost 24 years ago on March the 12th of next year. And I do not think that he deserves a second chance. He got life without the possibility of parole for premeditated. Well, it was supposed to be first-degree murder until he recanted his statement, and then it was second-degree murder, is what I was told. I was real young, but it was life without parole regardless. And I do not think, in my heart, if he gets out, I do not think he's a changed man. People will say anything to get out of prison. And he has ruined my life to a certain extent. I have fixed and changed my life in the only way that I know how, because I never had a father and I never had a mother. And you, sir, you have ruined my life. And I will never forgive you for that. And I do not believe you deserve a second chance. Life without parole means life without parole. And I hope and I pray to God that that's what you get and that's where you stay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Osborne.
you. Thank you for letting me speak. I apologize if I'm emotional, but he took everything away from me and my sister.
Yes, sir.
So
Thank
I
you
want
for sharing those.
thank
You, sir.
thank you.
Now we will hear from the DA's office, Ms. Fitzgerald.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Sam.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just wanted to give some comments on behalf of the DA's office. I actually remember when this case happened and when it was tried. I remember the family and how dedicated they were to seeking justice for their loved one, coming to court dates and the trial, and getting a taste of the devastation that they were experiencing. As it's already been mentioned, I just want the board to focus on the fact that this was premeditated, that it was very predatory in nature, it was very intentional. It was not a crime of passion, and it was totally unprovoked by Joni, the victim. The setting the house on fire, the driving around the town of Vivian, not knowing where Joni was until he basically happened upon the house where she was. Mr. Sharp was on a mission that day, and he accomplished his mission of killing Joni, and easily could have killed other victims too, Mr. Stanford and his mother who were there. Miss Joni had applied for a protective order the month before this happened. She was doing the things that we tell victims of abuse to do. And victims of abuse fear getting protective orders because they fear retaliation. And that's exactly what happened in this case. She got the protective order and she was killed and lost her life anyway. You know, he took a gun, he borrowed a truck. As I said, this was a long drawn out event. And so Joni was only 37 years old in the prime of her life. 2 children were left motherless. And I can't argue that Mr. Sharp looks good on paper, all of his involvement and accomplishments, and I commend him for that. But basically, Mr. Roche said a lot of what I was going to say, that no matter what he's done to atone or to improve himself, we just don't feel like 23 years is enough for taking Joni's life. And he's already received privileges due to his accomplishments. He's living at the police barracks. He's has a job at the governor's mansion. So he has been acknowledged for his accomplishments. But, we feel like he's been rewarded enough at this point, and that he has not paid his debt to Joni or to her family. And I appreciate your time.
Right, and thank you. We appreciate the input from the DA's office. Mr. Sharp, before we turn it over to Mr. Block, is there a statement you'd like to make to the board?
Yes, ma'am. Above everything, I know that I destroyed that family's life. I understand. I can't ever understand the depth of how I destroyed it. I want them to know how sorry I am. And if I could change it, I would. I left an 8-year-old and 11-year-old without a mother, and a sister sisterless, and a mother with one less daughter. I understand that. There's not a day that goes by that I don't pray for Maggie, Bradley, Penny, Darby, Geraldine, Marcio, and Ida Mae by name, morning and night. My prayer was that they didn't get bitter towards God and blame God for what I did. That's been my prayer for that family for years. As I said earlier, I hated who I saw in that mirror in that jail cell, and that's when I decided to change who I was, to be a giver instead of a taker. When I arrived at Angola, I got involved in the positive programs that they offer. Within 2 years, I was in the Bible college. I was an inmate counsel. In 2008, as Carrie said, I was selected to serve on the Angolite staff. I got involved in the Point Lookout Committee. I was the president of a club, a pastor of the 4th largest congregation at Angola. And I was denied a hearing in 2018, right before I came to the barracks. But that didn't deter me. Once I got here, I volunteered to become a mentor here. I volunteered in the law library. I volunteered to teach classes, and I made sure when I taught those 100-hour classes that they made sure that I was the one teaching the victims awareness because of that extensive class I took. I've been at the mansion now for 2 years. I've been a butler for the first family for over a year now. But you'll never hear me say I deserve a second chance. That's a terrible word for anybody that commits a crime such as I did to use. I'm just asking this board to please look at who I am today, not who I was then. And I thank you for this opportunity to appear before the board.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Block.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. And first, let me just thank all of you for being with us today. And it's a difficult job that all of you have, and I know you've read this file, and it's a difficult file, as you have heard this morning. But this is my first time appearing before you representing someone who is applying for clemency, and probably my only time doing so. I'm doing so because I know Larry Sharp. I've spent a lot of time around Larry Sharp. I know the man he is. But the other reason I'm doing so is because Larry is the record demonstrates, as the 23 years of the record demonstrates. Larry is the model of what the criminal justice system at its best can produce. Someone who admits their crime without hesitancy, makes no excuse, someone who understands, and perhaps most importantly, understands why he did the horrible things he did. and understands the addiction that he had that plagued him so many years of his life. And he has spent every day since trying to become a better person. And the record, 23 years of record, demonstrates he is a better person. That he has not only tried to better himself, he's tried to better others, and has. And Larry can do good in this world. Larry will do good in this world. He will be a productive member of society, and he can show that people can change and people can learn and people can be better, because he has done all of those things. He has done them for decades. As you've heard, Larry has a specific, detailed plan for what his life will look like after he is released. He has strong family support. He has a strong plan for how he is going to continue to deal with his lifelong addiction. Mr. Freeman, you asked him the question earlier, does he understand that he continues to be an alcoholic? And Larry will be the first to tell you that he understands it's a lifelong daily problem that he has to wake up every day and admit and confront and fight. And he has. But again, not only has he done that for himself, he has done that for so many people to help them understand the same things that he has learned. And he can continue to do that and will do that. And when you hear somebody like Kerry Myers say that there's no one that he has been around in his time, in the work that he has done, that is better prepared to be a productive member of society, that speaks volumes about, again, not the person that Larry was those many years ago, but the person he is now, and the person he will be if this board shall grant him the grace to go and to continue to improve himself and to be the person that he is now, but in the world where he can lead a better life. So on behalf of Mr. Sharp, what we're asking for is for his sentence to be commuted to 28 years, which would allow him to be released and to go out into the world and to lead a productive life. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, but I appreciate your time. And I thank you for your careful attention to Mr. Sharp's application.
Thank you, Mr. Glock. Any questions? Seeing none, board prepared to vote? Mr. Freeman?
Okay, Mr. Sharp, it's a very, very, very difficult investigation to me. I'm trying to balance the fact that you've only done 24 years for a premeditated murder with the fact of all of the great things you've done since you've been in prison. And my colleagues always are telling me that we're supposed to look at the person you are today. And the person you are today on paper is a great person. And I believe in my heart that, that you probably can make it on the outside. Not probably, I feel that you can make it. I wouldn't even think about granting you if I had any doubts. My vote today is going to be to grant. With the curfew, you cannot live within 100 miles of the victim.
Commutation.
Right, grant commutation of sentence to, I'm gonna say 50 years. With can't live within 100 miles of the victim and 3 AA meetings a week.
Mrs. Jackson?
Mr. Sharp, this was a very difficult case for me. I appreciate that you were completely honest in your comments about your actions in this case. You were very forthcoming, and often we don't get that. And you've also accomplished a lot of things. So those are good things in your favor. But on the other hand, I do have to look at the extent of the harm that you caused to the victim's family and their adamant opposition. I look at your history of violence leading up to this offense and look at the fact that you were 42, 43 years old when you committed this offense, and that you had ample time during the course of this process to have changed your mind. And the harm that you've done has been extensive. And I don't doubt that you're rehabilitated. I genuinely believe that you are. But I believe that after only 23 years of incarceration, it would be a disservice to the victims to grant you a commutation at this stage. You know, the fact that you're 65 years old is owing to the fact that you were in your 40s when you committed this crime. And so, for me, I just don't think that 23 years for the nature of this offense and the extent of the harm caused is sufficient. So my vote today would be to deny your request for commutation.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. Mr. Roche?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Sharp, I had a long drawn out reason why I'm going to give you the decision that I am. Ms. Jackson has just articulated each and every point that I was about to mention. So based on the information that was articulated by Mrs. Jackson, my vote also is to deny your request.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Sharp, the crime that you committed is a horrible crime. I've been in the criminal justice system for over 50 years. I was a judge for 16 to 17 years, and domestic violence and those kind of cases were just horrible. All murders are horrible. This is the devastating effect that you've had on the family can't be ignored, and that's very clear. But again, our role is to look at that and to look at who you are today and what you've accomplished. You have accomplished a lot of things while you've been in prison. You're a very trusted employee. Your disciplinary record is exemplary. You have given back community service to your inmates. You've been very honest about what you did. Drugs and alcohol just chalked your life up. And as a former drug court judge, I know exactly what that does to people. You recognize that. You have a good sobriety plan. You have a good transition plan with the Louisiana Parole Project. My vote today would be to grant a commutation, recommend to the governor that he grant a commutation to 50 years. I agree with Mr. Freeman that that's a significant number to me. So good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Sharp, we got a split vote today. You know what the outcome is. I'll say this. My vote would also be to commit to 50 years. I think you were very forthcoming today. I know you, I know the work that you've done. I know the service you've provided. You have an excellent prison record. You give back to your prison community to the extent that you can. You have a low risk score, and you're very positive remarks by the facility staff. But you've received 3 favorable votes, 2 votes that were not favorable. So today your application's been denied. So
Thank you, ma'am.